INFJs might look calm, collected, and even mysterious on the outside, but behind that quiet exterior lies a storm of struggles most people will never see. They carry emotional depth, unspoken battles, and a complexity that sets them apart from everyone else. These struggles aren't always obvious, yet they shape how INFJs think, feel, and move through the world. In this video, we're diving into the 12 silent struggles only INFJs truly understand, the ones that leave them feeling misunderstood, isolated, and different, even when surrounded by others. If you've ever wondered why INFJs withdraw, why they overthink, or why they can sense things no one else does, this will give you the answers. Stay with me until the end, because the last struggle is the one that explains why INFJs often walk away from people without warning, and once you hear it, you'll never see them the same way again. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to Brainy and join our community where we uncover the hidden psychology of INFJs, Sigma personalities, and deep thinkers. Now, let's get into it. Feeling emotions more deeply than they can express. One of the most defining struggles INFJs face is the way they experience emotions at a depth few can imagine. While most people might feel sadness, joy, or anger in fleeting waves, INFJs experience them like an ocean, vast, layered, and impossible to capture in simple words. Their emotional world isn't just intense, it's multidimensional. A single event can ripple through them in ways that touch not only their present feelings, but also past memories, hopes, and fears for the future. The difficulty lies in expression. When emotions are so deep, putting them into words feels almost insulting to their complexity. How do you explain the ache of empathy when you feel someone else's pain as if it were your own? How do you describe the bittersweet mix of hope and grief when you sense both possibility and loss in the same moment? For INFJs, language often falls short, leaving them silent when their inner world is overflowing. This silence is often misread by others. People assume the INFJ doesn't care, when in reality, they care so much it hurts. They may withdraw, not because they're detached, but because they're searching for a way to process the weight of emotions they can't fully articulate. This creates a painful paradox. They long to be understood, but struggle to make others grasp the depth of what they feel. At times, their intensity can even overwhelm relationships. Friends or partners may mistake their emotional depth for drama or exaggeration, when in truth, it's just their baseline experience of life. For the INFJ, the challenge is not just managing emotions, but living in a world that often feels too shallow to hold them. Absorbing other people's moods and energies. One of the heaviest burdens INFJs carry is their tendency to absorb the emotions and energies of those around them. It isn't something they consciously choose. It's almost like breathing. Walk into a room filled with tension, and the INFJ will feel their chest tighten. Sit next to someone quietly grieving, and the INFJ may leave carrying sadness that was never theirs to begin with. Their empathy is so finely tuned that it can blur the line between their own feelings and those of others. At first glance, this might seem like a gift. After all, it allows INFJs to connect deeply, to understand people without words, and to provide comfort that feels almost supernatural. But over time, this ability can turn into a crushing weight. Imagine going through life constantly picking up baggage that doesn't belong to you. Stress from coworkers, frustration from family, or heartbreak from a friend. Even if no one says a word, the INFJ senses it, processes it, and often carries it long after others have moved on. The challenge is that most people don't realize the toll this takes. While others can brush off bad vibes, INFJs internalize them. A day spent in the wrong environment can leave them drained, anxious, or emotionally heavy, and they may not even understand why. It wasn't their fight, their sadness, or their insecurity, yet somehow they're left holding it. This makes boundaries essential, but boundaries don't come easily to INFJs. Saying no, stepping back, or protecting their space often feels like letting people down, and so they quietly endure, hoping solitude will help them reset. While absorbing emotions allows them to be compassionate healers, it also risks leaving them depleted, carrying invisible wounds that no one else can see. The pressure of always wanting to fix or help. One of the quiet burdens IFJs carry is the constant feeling that it's their responsibility to fix things for others. Whether it's smoothing over tension in a group, supporting a friend through heartbreak, or stepping in when someone seems overwhelmed, INFJs feel almost compelled to help. It's not just kindness, it's an inner pressure, a voice that whispers, "If you don't help, no one will." This drive comes from their deep empathy and ability to sense what people need, sometimes even before the person knows it themselves. An INFJ can feel the heaviness in a friend's silence or detect the cracks in someone's confident mask. And once they sense it, they can't unsee it. Instead of letting it go, they often throw themselves into problem solving, offering advice, emotional support, or even carrying burdens that don't belong to them. The problem is, this constant need to fix and help can become draining. INFJs often sacrifice their own peace and energy just to keep others afloat. They stay up late listening to someone else's struggles, take on extra responsibilities at work to cover for others, or suppress their own needs because someone else's crisis feels more important. Over time, this creates imbalance. Their empathy turns into overextension, and they end up exhausted, resentful, or even burnt out. What makes this struggle even harder is the guilt that comes with saying no. INFJs often fear being seen as selfish or unkind if they step back, so they keep giving even when their emotional tank is empty. The irony is that while they want to be the savior, constantly fixing others can leave them neglecting themselves. The hidden truth? INFJs need to learn that it's not their job to heal everyone. Sometimes the most powerful help is simply allowing people to face their own struggling to set boundaries without guilt. One of the hardest lessons INFJs face is learning how to set boundaries without drowning in guilt. For them, saying no doesn't feel like a simple refusal, it feels like they're letting someone down, being unkind, or even betraying their own compassionate nature. Because of their deep empathy, INFJs are wired to prioritize others' needs. They often see where someone is struggling, and instead of stepping back, they step in, even when it costs them their own peace. But the truth is, this generosity comes with a hidden struggle. Every time they agree to help when they're exhausted, every time they sacrifice their time to avoid disappointing someone, they chip away at their own emotional reserves. Boundaries are necessary for everyone, but for INFJs, they feel unnatural, even selfish. It's as if the act of protecting their own energy goes against their instinct to care, and that's where the guilt sets in. Imagine being the person everyone turns to for advice, support, or a listening ear. At first, it feels fulfilling, but over time, it can feel suffocating. INFJs know they need to draw a line, but the moment they do, their inner critic whispers, "You're abandoning them. You're not being the friend, partner, or supporter they need you to be." This guilt often pushes them to erase the boundary they tried to set, pulling them back into overgiving. The irony is that without strong boundaries, INFJs end up depleted and resentful, which harms their relationships far more than a firm no ever could. When they finally learn that boundaries aren't walls, but filters, a way to preserve their energy so they can give authentically, they begin to heal. Still, the struggle remains. Every no is a battle between their empathy and their need for self-preservation. Being drained by small talk and surface-level interactions. For INFJs, small talk is more than just boring, it's exhausting. On the surface, a quick exchange about the weather, weekend plans, or casual gossip might seem harmless, but for someone wired to seek depth and meaning in every interaction, it feels like wasted energy. INFJs crave conversations that go beneath the surface: what drives people, what they're struggling with, what inspires them, or how they see the world. When the dialogue stays shallow, they feel disconnected, as if they're wearing a mask just to get through the moment. The real struggle is that daily life often demands small talk. Workplaces, family gatherings, or social events are filled with it. While others may find it refreshing or comforting, INFJs experience it as an emotional drain. Pretending to be engaged while their mind longs for substance leaves them feeling empty by the end of the day. It's not that they dislike people, quite the opposite. They value human connection so deeply that superficial exchanges feel like a poor substitute for the real thing. This constant exposure can lead INFJs to withdraw entirely. Instead of forcing themselves into shallow conversations, they'd rather retreat into solitude, where their energy isn't wasted. But withdrawal can also make them misunderstood. Others might assume they're aloof, unfriendly, or uninterested, when in reality, they're simply preserving their emotional energy for the few connections that truly matter. Over time, this struggle teaches INFJs to carefully curate their inner circle. They'd rather have a handful of friends who want to talk about dreams, fears, and life's mysteries than a room full of acquaintances chatting about surface-level topics. For INFJs, depth isn't optional. It's the only way they feel alive in conversation. And when forced into small talk for too long, it becomes one of the silent struggles that leaves them drained and unseen. Feeling invisible even when surrounded by people. One of the most painful struggles INFJs face is the feeling of invisibility, the sense that no matter how present they are in a room, they're not truly seen. Their quiet, reflective nature often makes them fade into the background, especially in environments that reward extroversion and loud personalities. While others dominate conversations, tell stories, or draw attention to themselves, INFJs quietly observe, listening deeply and processing everything. Yet, instead of being valued for their presence, they're often overlooked as if they weren't there at all. This invisibility isn't about shyness or lack of contribution. It's about the world not knowing how to read them. Because INFJs rarely demand attention, people assume they don't need it. Because they rarely interrupt, others assume they don't have much to say. And because they often choose silence over empty words, they're mistaken for being detached when in reality, they're overflowing with thoughts and insights they rarely share. What makes this struggle even harder is that INFJs desperately want authentic connection. They don't crave the spotlight, but they long for someone to notice their quiet loyalty, their deep understanding, and their subtle ways of showing care. When no one notices, it creates a loneliness that feels even heavier than being alone because it happens in the middle of a crowd. It's the isolation of not being recognized for who they truly are. Over time, this pattern can lead INFJs to withdraw further. They may stop trying to be seen, convincing themselves that invisibility is easier than disappointment. Yet deep down, they hope for someone who looks past the surface, someone who notices the quiet ones, who asks the deeper questions, and who values presence over volume. Until then, feeling invisible remains one of their most silent and misunderstood struggles. Overthinking small details that others ignore. For INFJs, overthinking is less of a habit and more of a default mental setting. Their minds replay conversations, facial expressions, and subtle cues on a loop, trying to extract hidden meaning from even the smallest details. A pause in someone's voice, a glance that felt different, or a slightly delayed text response can spiral into hours of internal analysis. While others move on without a second thought, INFJs often feel trapped in their own head, dissecting every moment for clues about people's intentions or emotions. This overthinking stems from their natural sensitivity to patterns and underlying truths. They aren't satisfied with surface-level explanations. They want to understand the why behind every action. But this gift can quickly turn into a burden. What might have been an innocent remark gets replayed 10 times until it feels like an insult. A neutral silence can feel like rejection, and minor mistakes become exaggerated into perceived failures long after everyone else has forgotten them. The exhausting part is that INFJs often know they're overthinking. They'll tell themselves to stop, to let it go, yet the cycle continues because their intuition whispers that something's off. It's as if their inner radar can't be switched off, constantly scanning for signals others miss. Over time, this tendency can drain their mental energy and create self-doubt. Instead of enjoying the present, INFJs may feel stuck in the past, questioning if they said the right thing or if they misread a situation entirely. It can also affect relationships, as others may not understand why INFJs seem distant, anxious, or overly cautious after what appeared to be a normal interaction. Ironically, the same overthinking that wears them down is also what makes INFJs so insightful. They connect dots others miss, anticipate outcomes, and sense deeper truths. But the challenge lies in knowing when to trust their intuition and when to let the details go. Needing solitude but being misunderstood for it. For For INFJs, solitude isn't just a preference, it's a necessity. Their inner world is rich, intense, and constantly processing emotions, patterns, and insights. Time alone allows them to recharge, sift through their thoughts, and regain balance after absorbing the emotional weight of others. Without solitude, they risk burnout, irritability, and emotional exhaustion. Yet, despite how vital it is for them, this need for space is often misunderstood. To many people, stepping away can feel like rejection. Friends may think the INFJ is pulling back out of disinterest. Partners may misinterpret solitude as coldness or detachment. Family members may take it personally, assuming the INFJ doesn't want to spend time with them. What they don't realize is that solitude isn't about shutting others out, it's about returning to themselves so they can show up fully later. The irony is that INFJs usually care deeply about the very people who misunderstand their need for space. But because they dislike conflict and fear hurting others, they don't always explain it clearly. Instead, they disappear quietly, hoping others will understand. Unfortunately, this silence often leads to tension, leaving them labeled as distant or aloof. In truth, solitude is what makes INFJs strong. It's in their quiet hours that they reflect, heal, and transform. It's when they journal, read, or sit in silence that their insights sharpen and their empathy renews. When they finally return to the world, they're more grounded, more compassionate, and more capable of offering the depth of care they're known for. The challenge lies in helping others see that solitude isn't rejection, it's self-preservation. It's the way INFJs protect their energy so they can continue giving to others without losing themselves in the process, feeling torn between caring deeply and protecting themselves. So one of the most painful struggles INFJs face daily is the constant tug-of-war between their deep compassion and their need for self-protection. By nature, INFJs feel emotions intensely, not just their own, but those of others as well. When someone they care about is hurting, their instinct is to step in, offer support, and shoulder the emotional burden. They want to heal, to guide, to make things right. Yet with every act of giving, they risk losing pieces of themselves. This creates a silent battle. On one side is their empathy, urging them to open their heart fully, to be the friend who listens at 2 a.m., or the partner who sacrifices their own needs for harmony. On the other side is their awareness that too much giving leaves them drained, vulnerable, and sometimes even taken for granted. They know that not everyone they help will respect or appreciate their efforts. Some may even exploit it. The result is guilt. If they step back to protect their peace, they feel selfish. If they give too much, they feel exhausted and resentful. This paradox can weigh heavily on them, making relationships complicated. Friends and partners may not understand why the INFJ sometimes swings between deep closeness and sudden withdrawal, but in reality, both behaviors come from the same place, a heart that loves deeply, but also knows it cannot survive without boundaries. Over time, many INFJs learn to balance this struggle by becoming selective. They choose carefully who to give their energy to, and they practice the difficult art of saying no. It isn't coldness, it's wisdom. Because for an INFJ, protecting their inner world isn't about shutting people out. It's about ensuring that when they do give, it comes from a place of true strength rather than exhaustion, doubting themselves even when their intuition is right. INFJs are known for their powerful intuition, often described as a sixth sense that allows them to see beneath the surface and recognize patterns long before others do. They can feel when something is off in a relationship, sense hidden motives, or predict outcomes that seem unlikely to everyone else. And yet, despite this uncanny ability, one of their greatest struggles is doubting themselves, even when their intuition is spot on. This self-doubt usually comes from years of being told they're too sensitive or that they're overthinking. As children or young adults, INFJs often pick up on subtle emotional cues others ignore, but when they voice these insights, they're brushed aside or even mocked. Over time, this makes them second-guess their inner knowing, convincing themselves they might be imagining things. So when their intuition whispers, "something isn't right," they hesitate to trust it. In relationships, this creates painful scenarios. An INFJ may sense dishonesty, manipulation, or betrayal, but they'll silence their inner alarm because they don't want to be unfair, dramatic, or paranoid. They give people the benefit of the doubt, often to their own detriment. Later, when the truth comes out and their intuition is proven correct, they feel both validated and frustrated. Validated because they were right all along, but frustrated because they didn't trust themselves enough to act sooner. This cycle of doubt and regret can be exhausting. It leaves INFJs wondering if they'll ever fully trust their instincts, even though those instincts are one of their greatest gifts. The irony is that their intuition rarely fails them. It's their self-doubt that gets in the way. With time and self-awareness, many INFJs learn to embrace this gift, reminding themselves that being misunderstood by others doesn't make their insights any less real. Hiding their struggles because they don't want to burden others. One of the most painful silent struggles INFJs carry is their habit of hiding their own pain. While they're often the first to listen, comfort, and support others, they rarely allow themselves the same openness. Deep down, they fear that sharing their struggles will burden, disappoint, or overwhelm the people they care about. So instead of speaking up, they put on a brave face and suffer in silence. And this comes from their natural empathy. INFJs are so attuned to the emotions of others that they hesitate to add more weight to anyone's shoulders. If a friend is already stressed, they'll keep quiet about their own problems. If family members are going through something, they'll suppress their struggles to avoid making it worse. Even in close relationships, INFJs often minimize their pain, saying they're fine, when inside they're anything but. Unfortunately, this self-sacrifice often backfires. While it protects others from worry, it isolates the INFJ. Over time, their bottled-up emotions can lead to exhaustion, resentment, or even health issues. People around them may not even realize how much they're hurting because the INFJ has worked so hard to keep it hidden. The paradox is that their silence creates distance in relationships, the very opposite of what they want. On some level, INFJs wish others would just notice and ask what's wrong. They long for someone who can see through their mask the way they see through others. But because they rarely express vulnerability, people assume they're strong, stable, and don't need help. This leaves INFJs carrying heavy burdens alone. The truth is, their struggles don't make them weak, they make them human. And while INFJs may never fully stop protecting others from their pain, learning to share even small parts of their truth can help them feel less alone and more supported, knowing they'll never be fully understood. Perhaps the deepest struggle INFJs carry is the quiet awareness that no one will ever truly see the full complexity of who they are. On the surface, they may appear calm, grounded, or even predictable, but beneath that exterior lies an inner world layered with emotions, insights, and thoughts that are difficult, sometimes impossible to put into words. INFJs think and feel on multiple levels at once. They can sense undercurrents others miss, connect patterns that seem invisible, and hold emotional depth that feels overwhelming even to themselves. This makes them profoundly intuitive, but also profoundly misunderstood. Even the people closest to them, family, partners, or lifelong friends, often only grasp fragments of their true selves. When they try to explain their perspective, they're met with blank stares, confusion, or dismissal. Over time, this teaches INFJs to share less, to keep their inner world hidden, and to carry the loneliness of knowing they can never be fully figured out. This sense of alienation isn't just about intellect or sensitivity, it's about the combination of both. INFJs can feel joy and sorrow in the same moment, hope and despair in the same breath. They can envision possibilities while still being weighed down by the realities of the present. To most people, that paradox seems contradictory, but to INFJs, it's simply their truth. And when others can't relate, the INFJ retreats deeper into themselves. The painful irony is that ENFJs spend their lives understanding others more than anyone else could, yet they rarely feel that same understanding in return. This creates an ongoing struggle to accept that being profoundly different also means being profoundly unseen. But while it's isolating, it also gives them strength. Knowing they'll never be fully understood frees them to stop seeking validation and to embrace their uniqueness as both a gift and a responsibility. And there you have it, the 12 silent struggles that INFJs face every single day. Most people will never notice them, and even fewer will ever understand the depth of what goes on inside an INFJ's mind. Yet these struggles also shape their quiet strength, their resilience, and their ability to see the world in ways others can't. If you've ever felt unseen, misunderstood, or weighed down by emotions that others can't even begin to grasp, know this: you are not alone. Every INFJ carries these silent battles, but they also carry gifts that the world desperately needs. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these struggles do you relate to the most? Or if you're not an INFJ, which one surprised you the most to learn about? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might resonate with someone else who needs to hear it. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next deep dive into the INFJ mind.